you may want to share your camera. Okay, let me start sharing. Okay, I am just going to start with okay, can any of you kind of unmute yourself and let me know if you can see my screen?
Yes.
All right, great.
Yes, I can see it very clearly.
All right, great. Thank you so much. All right, so Spring Cleanse, Ancient Wisdom with a Functional Approach. I know most of you know me, but for people who will be watching the recording and who do not know me, and some of you who are joining me for the first time, a little bit about myself. I have been in the field of how to use food as medicine for more than 10 years in different roles that I have played in my journey of learning and researching and incorporating that in my life and the life of my friends, family, and now clients. I am practicing as a nutritionist now for the last almost 4 years, as a functional nutritionist for the last 2 years. And my passion is gut health. And also I am very involved with integrating the wisdom of Ayurveda, which is my traditional culture, with the functional nutrition or the modern nutrition practices. Now, a lot of times my clients are not aware of Ayurveda. Does not mean that I do not incorporate it. They may not be aware, but those are principles. Those are the basic foundational principles which are always there, which I keep in mind when I'm working with my clients. And the whole purpose, what has really intrigued me and has, in fact, is the reason why I also wanted to connect from an Ayurvedic lens, a spring cleanse from a functional approach too, was because both of them speak the same language. It's just the way they're presenting or the way they're talking is different, but they're in the essence of the way we live, the way lifestyle, diet, and the basic foundations of health are based on. They're both speaking in essence the same thing. And Ayurveda also wants to get to the root of the problem. And a functional approach in nutrition is also all about getting to the root of the problem. And rather than just applying band-aids and just trying to get symptomatic relief. And the other thing is, which is very important with a functional approach, is that you build a therapeutic relationship with people I work with. So that's a little bit about me. If you want to learn more, we can always connect later or at the end of the call. So let me just continue with the presentation. I don't really need to go over the protocol. The only thing is, it is a Zoom session. You can write your questions in the chat box. I will not access the chat box while I'm giving the presentation. And as I said, if you feel it's better to clarify it while the presentation is on, I don't have a problem if you can unmute yourself and kind of ask me the question right then and there. This next is basically for me to kind of make it very clear that I'm not a doctor or a medical practitioner. I do not diagnose, and I will not be replacing the advice of your doctor or your medical practitioner. Today, I'm not too concerned, but this is pretty much a standard protocol I have that I make my clients aware that if you plan to incorporate anything that I recommend during my presentations, please check with your practitioner, especially if you have a diagnosed condition and you're taking prescription drugs or prescription medicines, because sometimes there can be a possible drug interaction, and that's the reason why it's very important. We can have a conversation in case you're not sure about something at the end of the session. Though today's session, I won't be really talking in detail about any herbs or anything, but just be aware in case you have a chronic health condition. Just don't go ahead and jump into something which can have any kind of contraindications. Okay, the agenda for today's presentation is basically going to be, I'm going to talk about the concept behind spring cleanse, why spring is the ideal time to help the body get rid of what it doesn't need. And I'm going to be integrating the wisdom of Ayurveda with a functional lens. And I'm going to introduce to you, in case it's new, the concept of tastes, doshas in Ayurveda, and the biorhythms of nature. Now, I'm not going to get into the detail because this presentation is not about really introducing Ayurvedic concepts in a very detailed way. It's just to kind of give you an idea. And also, what are the detox pathways in the body and how we support them during this time. And then I'm going to talk about beta launch of a program, which I actually have done for the last 3 or 4 years. And sometimes I have done it on social media, and I feel I've done it casually. And that's the reason why it doesn't take off. And this time I'm really focusing on getting into a detailed step-by-step program, and plan to launch it every time. And I'll talk about it's not just going to be spring. It is in every transition season, and I'll talk about it at the end of the class. But just be aware that I will give you an option of joining me for a 7-day Spring Cleanse program live in case you're interested in doing that. All right, so let's make it a little interactive. Feel free to unmute yourself to answer these. So it's a true and false question. Exercise and daily movement helps the body get rid of toxins. True or false?
True. True. True.
Okay, would anybody like to volunteer why you think it is true?
I think exercise does help to get rid of toxins, because as you're walking and moving, and your body is moving as well, so all your organs internally help to get rid of all the junk that's in there.
Okay.
It could be through going to the washroom, or it could be through sweat, whichever way. But I think toxins can get rid of toxins while exercising or moving your
Very
body.
good. Kaushika, you definitely got it. Quite a good amount of points were correct, that there is movement. You sweat it out. Sweat is another way of the body releasing toxins. But one of the biggest things which we don't talk about, and I'm sure if I bring it in your awareness, you'll realize we have something called a lymphatic system, or the whole lymph, which is basically a circulation which is linked. It's like I would say, channel of circulation in the whole body, which is all along your veins and arteries. And what it does is your blood, any toxic load in the blood is removed in the lymphatic ways, through the lymphatic system. And then all that is carried to the lymph nodes or the liver. Now, that lymphatic system does not have, like your heart is a pump which allows the blood to be carried every time it pumps. The nutrients can be carried and everything. The lymphatic system in the body is also a similar circulatory system, but does not have anything to pump it. And the only way the lymphatic system works is through stimulation, through movement, through exercise. So I'm sure you've heard of lymphatic massages, which basically help moving this lymphatic system, which is a way of channel where toxins can be moved and then dropped to the liver, and then liver has a way of eliminating them from the body. And and I don't know if you've heard of rebounding. Any of you have heard of rebounding?
No.
Okay, so rebounding is basically, you have trampolines, like little kids jump on trampolines. So rebounding is basically, you have adult small trampolines where you jump. And if you jump on a trampoline where it's like rebounds you back into against gravity, 7 minutes of rebounding can actually stimulate your full lymphatic system to have a full circulation. So that's where exercise and daily movement stimulates your lymphatic system and allows those toxins to be released. Now, the easiest example I can give you is, sometimes have you seen behind your ears or around your throat, you get little nodules, like little bumps. That's basically your lymphatic system, which is at work. Your tonsils are a part of your lymphatic system, and the whole lymphatic system is a part of your immune system. It's a way the body releases toxins, and either they're eaten up or they're burned or they're released from the body. So that's how exercise and daily movement helps move the lymphatic system too. Apart from what you said, that there is movement, peristalsis, your colon, its constipation is prevented. Eliminating poop is another way of eliminating toxins, and sweat. Okay, true or false again? The printed receipt at the grocery cash register is a source of toxin. True or false?
I think it's partially true because of the ink, maybe, but
Okay.
I don't know if I consider it toxin.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. It is true. Ink is one aspect, but I will tell you, if you do not touch the ink, it is still a source of BPA. So all these rolls of receipts, the paper rolls which you see, which are printed, and when you hold them, they're a very big source of BPA, and we keep seeing BPA-free plastics and things like that. That uh, roll is full of BPA, which can be very, very toxic for the body. In fact, because of the overuse of plastics in our environment, in our water, in the microplastics and everything, it is turning out to be a huge trigger for our immune system. So if you do not need the receipt, try and avoid touching it, because your skin, through the skin, you absorb that BPA in the rolls. Okay. True or false? A cleanse and a detox are same.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Anybody else would like to say anything? And if yes, why? If no, why?
I think both are kind of same, just two words for the same thing.
Okay. Okay, so this was a trick question. So I'll tell you, they're not really the same, though the purpose for both of them is same, that we want to get the body rid of anything which it is storing, which is basically toxic. But a cleanse is something which is more gentle, and a detox is something which is more intense and very focused and targeted. So a cleanse is basically which allows the body's own ability to detox is enhanced. So a cleanse is not focused on really more specific, more targeted, whereas a detox is. And a detox can be a lot more shocking to the body. A cleanse is not. It's much gentler. And we're not really doing too much with the cleanse except supporting the body's own detox, the detox pathways or the detox organs. Now, the easiest example is, and a cleanse is generally focused on basically getting it through, allowing the body's intelligence to come up through diet, through nutrition, through focusing on the digestive system, and through lifestyle. A detox is when you really take products like supplements or detox herbs, and which are quite strong and targeted. For example, if you have parasites and you have a parasite detox going on, or if you have heavy metals. So now we have specific detox in case people who have Alzheimer's or any conditions which have heavy metals in the brain. We do specific detoxes for them, which are focused on getting the heavy metals out. So that it makes it a lot more intensive. So the purpose for both of them is to eliminate the toxins, but the way they're done and the impact of it is very different. BPA-free plastic bottles are toxin-free, as in if you're looking at a plastic which is BPA-free, there is no toxic, it's still non-toxic, because we see it everywhere, BPA-free. Would anybody like to answer this?
Geeta, I have a doubt in your previous question. So
Okay.
you're telling Alzheimer's is related to some kind of toxins in brain?
Yeah. So Alzheimer's and a lot of brain conditions are related to an accumulation of heavy metals. Do you understand what is a heavy metal?
No.
Okay, so heavy metal is something like mercury, like lead. Lead is found in water. It comes through the pipes, the water system. In case it's very old, then there is lead which is circulating. Or if there is too much of mercury in the water or in fish, like if you eat fish and if there is a lot of mercury in that fish, that can create too much of metal toxicity. So it's not right away poisonous, but there are slowly it crosses the blood-brain barrier. The brain has a protection. And if there is heavy metal accumulation in the brain, it can cause deterioration in the functioning of the brain. And one of the reasons for having Alzheimer's or cognitive decline is having excessive heavy metals in the brain. So when there are ways to test for that, there are hair and mineral analysis, which test for heavy metals in the body. And in case there are heavy metals, then there are specific detox protocols which are more intense, using certain products and supplements and herbs. Is that, do you understand this now, Betsy?
I got it. So, but then if we do something, if there is some procedures to remove that metal from the brain, then the patient should ideally return to the normal state, right?
It depends if the detox is successful or not, and then testing is done. But again, going back to the question here was whether, is there a difference between a cleanse and a detox? When we talk about a cleanse, the purpose is to get the toxins out, but we are not really putting the body in that kind of an intense detox condition. It's like we're not pushing inside a lot of supplements or chemicals or anything, or chelators which can bind to heavy metals in order to take that out. So it's just the intensity of the way a cleanse is done and a detox is done is different. A cleanse is done basically focusing on the digestive health, on the gut.
Okay.
Okay. We can talk about this more in case if you still would like more clarity.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. BPA-free plastic bottles are toxin-free. Anybody? Otherwise, I know it can be confusing because we kind of justify ourselves that, oh, it's a BPA-free plastic and it is fine.
False, yeah. I think it's false.
Yeah, it is false. So what they're doing now is, it's a way the pharmaceuticals and the production industry and basically the big corporates, they have figured out, okay, BPA has research now, and that's toxic. So let's replace it. And they have found a plastic which they call BPS or BPP, which are basically, again, a different molecular composition, which they do not have any long-term research at this point of time because it's not been used for that long. And it's been called, okay, we have removed the BPA, but it is still toxic. Any kind of plastics, especially combined with hot or anything which generates heat, is toxic. Okay, the best time to do a cleanse is spring and summer. True or false? Okay, it's a trick question.
False.
You're right, Amir. It is only spring and not summer. Ayurveda does not recommend that you do any cleanses or detoxes. Detox is a little different. We'll stick to cleanse. Any cleanses in summer, in the peak of summer or in the peak of winter. It's only the transition seasons which are the most suitable for any kind of cleanses. So spring and fall are the most ideal times. And spring is the best time to kind of reset the body for the whole year. And I will talk more about it as we get in. So going back to why functional approach to Ayurveda. So Ayurveda is something which is one of the oldest cultures we have. And it has gotten like the way they have described how to live, how to eat, how to what kind of lifestyles to incorporate. It was basically a way of leading your life, and which was in connection to the biorhythms of nature. And I'll talk in a bit about the biorhythms of nature. And the functional approach is very important to that concept because though times have changed, there is a huge shift in how people lived so many hundreds and thousands of years ago as compared to the way we are living. The functional approach to Ayurveda allows us to adapt it to our times. And that's what you will see when I talk about how to incorporate those, but in today's life. So why do a cleanse? What is the purpose of a cleanse? It's very simple. We want to get rid of the toxins that we are not kind of serving us anymore. But really what we are doing in a cleanse is we're enhancing your body's own intelligence, which is in each and every one of us, to release what it has accumulated, what it has built up, and what it is being exposed to. And you want to release that because it's not serving the body anymore. That's exactly what one of the biggest reasons for the cleanses. And I must tell you again, I know I've shared it before in most of my presentations, that a human body is a very intelligent piece of machinery. Modern science has still not fully understood the functioning of it. Like when I talk about the gut microbiome and the role of microbes, that research is only 20 years old. And we're still learning, and that research is in its infancy stage, where we are learning so much more about the disease process and everything. So we still don't know enough about the human body. We still don't know what happens when we go to sleep. Like scientists and researchers have figured out the bioresonance, the brain waves and everything when we are sleeping, but we still do not know enough. But a culture like Ayurveda, or even traditional cultures around the world, they are what they have done is they have understood the connection of the human body to the biorhythms, and they have kind of come up with solutions of the way to live and the way to eat and everything based on basically balancing that. And they've always understood that just like nature has an intelligence, the human body, when it's in sync with that nature, it also has an intelligence. When it's in sync, it knows how to balance itself and how to heal itself. And with an Ayurvedic cleanse, with an Ayurvedic approach, what we are basically doing is enhancing that intelligence which is within us. And again, I've said it before that it is a very gentle way, without shocking the system, of allowing the body to eliminate what it doesn't need. And the primary focus is going to be on the digestive or gut health. So that is why, and now going back to why spring, and some of you kind of said it's the changing season. So I'm going to kind of go into a little bit detail of why changing season and why this time of the year. So it's going to be a little interactive. Tell me, what is the season that is there before we get into spring? It's a very simple question. Anybody can just answer this. What season are we in? Sorry?
Winter.
Winter.
Yes, winter. Now, thinking about winter or the cold, what do we relate, or what can we identify winter with? Very cold temperatures and ice or snow. And
Yes.
and what is it that the body needs the most in order to protect it at that time?
Heat.
Heat. And what, as a source of food, what is the food which gives it the maximum heat and protection and warmth?
Sometimes spicy, maybe something like, like spicy herbs like cinnamon and cloves and all that masala.
Okay, so let's not go into small micronutrients. Let's talk about macronutrients. What is it that you need to eat more of, which will provide it the protection? Think of
Garlic.
okay, sorry,
Garlic.
garlic. Okay, that's warming for sure. You're thinking right, but I want you to think from a bigger perspective. What are the foods that you eat majorly? I know garlic, but how much garlic can you eat? Can you eat garlic to kind of fill yourself up? So think from the macronutrient perspective, and the three main macronutrients are proteins, carbohydrates, and fats.
More carbs?
Okay, do you think the carbs keep you warm?
No. Whiskey does.
Fat, actually.
Fat, exactly. You need more fat. If you think of winter, and especially we are in North America, I'm in North America, and when we think about winter, and if we think about the animals which live here, like beluga whales and like the bears and the polar bears and all, they all have very thick layers of fat. The reason is because fat is what helps the body keep warm. And the tendency for a human body also, in order to eat, to keep themselves warm in the winter season, what are the kind of foods that we're eating more? Typically in India, I remember growing up in India, we used to eat nuts, which are a very good source of fat, high source of fat, only in the winter. Now they're available throughout the year and nobody thinks in those terms, and you're eating nuts throughout the year. But typically nuts used to be eaten only in the winter season, especially in India because it's closer to the equator. The heat becomes really quite high. In North America, higher, the further you are away from the equator, the more cold we have, the longer winters we have, and we can withstand eating fat. But it's basically fat. Now, we all know that typically toxins or anything which is toxic finds its way into the fat. You've seen anything which is oily accumulates dirt much faster. It gets dirty much faster. So fat is an element which keeps the body warm, but that is also an element which accumulates the toxins and stores the toxins in the body. And so what happens with the winter solstice, which is typically when the sun comes into the northern hemisphere? And like when I'm trying to connect the bioenergies and the changing seasons, would anybody like to guess? All right, I will continue. It can be confusing. So when the sun comes into the northern hemisphere, typically what happens is we get the sun, which is come into, and it starts giving us more heat. So till then the fat is what had been providing us the warmth and the heat. And after that, the sun comes in and the snow starts melting. Now, depending on where you are on the altitude, we are not going to get into that. I'm just trying to connect here to the biorhythms. So when the snow starts melting, it starts your channels, the rivers and all start flowing slowly. The body has a very similar impact. When the sun comes into the northern hemisphere, there is an element which starts heating up the body as well. And the fat and the toxins start coming out into the channels of circulation in the body too. And that's why you will see most of the flu seasons happen around this time, because when your channels of circulation in the body, your lymphatic system, and I was talking about the whole lymphatic system in the body, the fat starts getting loosened and the toxins also start becoming loose and they start flowing in your lymphatic system. So, and typically spring is the time right after peak winter when that starts happening. And that's the time when your fat and these toxins are circulating in your lymphatic system. You get exposure to any viruses or bacteria and things like that, you will have more colds and coughs and flu seasons. So that's the reason why nature wants you to kind of start working on your lymphatic system and start eliminating and supporting the body in releasing these toxins, which are becoming more available for you to get rid of them. The minute you get into peak summer and peak winter, the body holds on to those toxins. Spring is the time when it is willing to release them automatically because of the way the sun's energy and it impacts the human body. So that's the reason why spring is the ideal time. And interestingly, what we've seen is all around the world, the time when you're supposed to do this kind of a cleanse or support the body's ability to detoxify, there are certain foods which allow that to happen, and nature actually gives you those foods. Now, the first set of foods which you get as we get into spring is dandelion greens. They start growing everywhere. Then you have stinging nettles, and you have bitter greens, a lot of greens which start growing everywhere. And those are the foods. All dark leafy greens, bitter foods are what really help supporting the body to eliminate toxins. And also kind of these foods also help the body break down fat even more, because there is no carbs, there's no sugar in these foods. And that is what the body needs. Now, I'll give you a very simple example, especially because we're talking about the snow and the animals in the northern hemisphere. Now, when you have animals like polar bears, when they come out of hibernation, typically when the snow starts melting, they come out of hibernation. What is the first foods that they hunt for, that they look for? They're really hungry. Sorry?
Fish?
No. So fish is something which the bears eat before they go into hibernation around. Have you heard of the salmon run, Kaushika? That happens in October.
Yes. Yes.
So they eat fish because fish is a very good source of fat around the time before they have to go into hibernation, because the fat from the fish and the omega-3s is what keeps them warm and lets them hibernate through the winter. And then when they come out of hibernation, what they're basically looking for is fruits and vegetables and berries.
Oh, okay.
So
Wow.
that's what you need in the spring. You start focusing on green leafy foods, bitter foods, and light fruits like berries. And we're going to talk in detail about it when I reach that. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Is that concept clear why we do it in the spring? Anybody has any questions so far?
I'm
No.
just thinking that the detox related to spring, I mean, spring could be different in different areas because nowadays, due to globalization, we are hardly having any spring. So, does that matter, or
You're
is the
right
time
to a certain extent that wherever you are, so the basic concept does not change. But if you kind of look at what nature is giving you in your region, the temperatures, everything will kind of, once you understand those biorhythms, you will adapt to that and your body will adapt to that. But typically the transition seasons, like in India, we're already quite warm, especially areas close to the equator are quite warm. So for them, the transition seasons, before they get into peak winter, peak summer, they still have a little bit of time to do these cleanses, but not as intense as people who are still in colder climates will do. So that shifts, and that comes with a little bit of understanding of the biorhythms and the way I'll talk about the 5 elements. Hopefully you will be able to pick it up and intuitively understand how to incorporate that. But yeah, Kaushika, there is with globalization and everything, it has shifted. But if you look at it, there is a reason why people say eat as per season and eat what grows in your region, because that way you'll always be in sync with the biorhythms of your region. And yeah, so it's very intuitive. We can't do it all the time, but specifically majority of the foods, if you stick to what is in season, what your temperatures are, and based on that, you will kind of allow the body to be in sync with the biorhythms. So going back to it, any other question anybody has? Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the biorhythms and how everything is basically, in Ayurveda also it connects, and how do we connect it to the liver and how do we connect it to the detox pathways of the body. So in Ayurveda and all traditional cultures around the world basically have represented the biorhythms of nature through 5 elements, which are, I'm sure you've heard of it in Feng Shui, in case you've been exposed to it, or in Ayurveda, we have the doshas, and those 5 building blocks of life, of everything around us, of the universe, of the biorhythms of nature. Everything is basically made up of 5 elements, which are ether or space, air, fire, water, and earth. And in Ayurveda, we talk about ether and air combine to form the humor or the dosha vata. Fire and water combine to form pitta, and earth and water combine to form kapha. Now, just remember this. I'm not going to get into detail because it'll become really confusing. But just remember that when I say vata, it's space and air. The typical characteristics of these 2 elements are that they're very dry and they're very light and they're cold. And when we talk about pitta, which is the fire and the water element, typically it's hot. It can be unctuous or light or slightly heavy based on the content of water, but the dominating element is fire. So we will keep it that it's hot and it's light. And then we have earth and water, which both when combined make it cold and heavy. So it's very logical. When you think of those elements, you understand the characteristics of those elements. And we'll leave it at here. And I will come back to this when I connect it to what's happening in the body. Okay, so when we talk about this, the 5 elements, now typically what happens is when we say these are the building blocks of the universe and everything that happens, so there is a cycle of nature, there is a cycle of the day, there is a cycle of night, there is a cycle of seasons. So typically when the characteristics I was telling you about those elements, the beginning of the cycle always begins with kapha. Even when a little child is born, that's called the kapha stage of your life. And spring is the time of kapha. The morning of a day, 6 to 10 a.m. or let me not confuse you. The early morning is when the day begins. That's the kapha time of the day. That's typically if you have. So when you think of kapha, which is earth and water, you think of fat, you think of phlegm, you think of heaviness, because that's what those characteristics are. So typically in the morning is when you feel sluggish. If a lot of people feel they have blocked nose in the morning, that's because the kapha element in the morning is active. As you go into the day, it's the pitta element, which is the heat, which is closer to the sun, is what becomes active. And that's also the summertime, because that's when the heat is the maximum. And when we talk about the cycle of life, the youth or the middle years of the life are, which are you need that fire to go get out, do work, live life, enjoy, have more energy to do things. So that's the middle stage, or the transformation or the metabolic stage of your life. And then we call vata the last stage, or the end of the cycle, which is typically like just before sunset, around 2 to 6 a.m. in the morning, or 2 to 6 a.m. Before the sun rises. So which is basically the last stage of the sun of the night. Fall and early winter is the time of the cycle, and old age is also called the vata stage of life. Now, I know it can be very confusing, and I want to check with you, did you get the concept of what I'm trying to tell you? That these are five elements. They're divided into three humors, or three constitutions or doshas, and these are basically form a cycle. So you have kapha, pitta, and vata, the three doshas, and it's basically a cycle, and everything in life can be defined based on these three cycles or these five elements. Does that make it clear?
Geeta, I have a doubt. So,
Yeah.
so what you meant is that one single person can have all these three stuff.
Yes. So in Ayurveda, what we say that all the five elements are there in everything. It's just the quantity or the amount of the dominating elements decide what that person's constitution is. So I'll give you an example. So if a person whose dominating element is pitta, that person tends to feel hot very quickly because the fire element is overactive in them. They have a good digestive system because generally pitta is connected to the fire, the digestive fire in the body. So they are able to break down and digest a lot of foods. But there are also people who cannot withstand afternoon or high heat temperatures. There are also people who tend to get angry very quickly because fire and getting heated up are all related. Do you understand that? But that doesn't mean that they do not have the cooling elements. They do have it, but the dominating element is pitta, which is fire and water. So everything is made up of five elements. The dominating elements basically decide your dosha. Does that clarify what I'm trying to explain?
So that dominating element will be like, will it be that dominating element will be the same throughout your life for a single person?
So you're born with your constitution or your dosha, but the life's impacts and exposure and environment and your diet can shift you from that and then can create imbalances. But the constitution you're born with remains the same throughout your life. And you are the healthiest when you keep that constitution in balance.
Okay. So like there is a way to find out we belong to which category?
Yes. An Ayurvedic practitioner can take your pulse and figure out your constitution. There are a lot of questionnaires as well. Once you understand the characteristics of a constitution, you will be able to identify your own constitution as well. I generally, when I work with clients, I try and figure out their constitutions after interaction with them for a couple of times because I get hints based on the characteristics. So hopefully, anybody else has any questions before I proceed? Because once you understand that concept, understanding how to eat, what seasons, how does it impact you, all that becomes much easier.
Okay.
Anybody else has any questions at this point of time? All right, let's go back.
No.
All right, great. Okay, so this is how the biorhythms of nature and the seasons and the clock, as in the days and everything, is connected. And even the circadian rhythm of a human body is connected to the sun and moon. And it's basically based on this same principle that we're talking about, the five main elements and how those biorhythms show up. Now, I'm going to get into the functional approach of the spring detox again, the spring cleanse again. So where do we get our toxins in? And it's a very simple thing, but a lot of these things we don't even think of. I mean, we think of food, that there are chemicals, preservatives, stabilizers in our food. We get it from our water, which may have chlorine and which may have other heavy metals or polluted waters. We get it from our air because of air pollution, chemicals, smoke. Even the cleaning products that we use have chemicals which can be toxic to the body. Then we have a lot of bacteria, viruses, and fungi, which we can be exposed to, which are harmful for us. And in case we do not have a strong colony of good bacteria within us, then these can take over and start creating issues in the body. Cosmetics and electromagnetic radiation that we are getting from cell phones and a lot of other, like X-rays and a lot of other EMF sources, is toxic for the body. Plastics, of course. Furniture. For years and years, we have used organic products like wood and like leather and like natural products which do not have any toxic exposures. But now with things which are replacing wood, things with the fabrics which are more synthetic, all of them have gassing, all of them have fumes which are not visible to the eye. You don't smell them. Sometimes you do smell them when you lay the floors, and the kind of laminate floors that are being used, especially here in North America, they all have gases which they emit. And like Health Canada and a lot of these organizations give them a category that, okay, this much of emission of fumes is considered safe and this one is not. But it's basically when you keep exposing yourself to so much of toxins consistently over time, it builds up in the body. Also, medicines and supplements have a lot of fillers, and they themselves could be causing toxic load in the body. And vaccines, we've seen there are a lot of side effects which are coming out now, even with the COVID vaccines or even previous vaccines. A lot of people react to it, and they do have fillers and they do have mediums which they use to kind of allow the virus or whatever medicine needs to be introduced in the body into the immune system to kind of get used to it and build immunity against certain viruses and all, could also kind of have an impact. So which are the ways that these toxins enter the body? It's through inhalation, which is through air passageways, through your nose, when you breathe in, through your ear. The biggest one is through your gut or your digestive system. That is, you ingest it, you eat it, or again, you can breathe it through your mouth, or you drink water, or that's one of the biggest ways. You can absorb it through your skin. And as I said, you can breathe it in through the air passageways, through your nose, through your ears. And it can be intravenous, as in it can be injected. Now, there are a lot of drugs which are injected, vaccines are injected. So these are the 4 ways that you can get toxins into your body. And what are the detox or the elimination organs in the body? Now, we know that liver is the biggest one. It's the master organ which performs more than 500 different functions daily. But the biggest role of the liver is detoxification. So, as I said, the body has an inherent intelligence to eliminate what it does not want. And your liver has the intelligence. In fact, from a scientific perspective, from a functional perspective, liver has 2 stages in which it detoxifies, or it converts any toxin which comes to it through different passageways, like as I said, through the skin, or through digesting it, or through the air passageways. Everything basically eventually goes to the liver, and the liver transforms those things which are really poisonous or toxic. It transforms it into something which is less poisonous, and then there is a stage 2 detoxification pathway in the liver which transforms it and makes it fat soluble or water soluble, so that it can accordingly be sent to kidneys in case it's water soluble, or to the colon in case it needs to be eliminated through the poop or through the lymphatic system, and or through sweat released by the skin. But all that transformation of every toxin that your body is introduced to is basically done by the liver. And that's why you cannot ignore the liver at all. And we say that when you start experiencing, when your body starts showing you signs, which I will talk about, what are the signs to look for in case your detox pathways are blocked. What's happened is basically, think of your liver as a bucket. It's constantly being filled with toxins, and it is transforming them and allowing it to be eliminated and sending it to the detox pathways. When that bucket overflows, what's going to happen is you will start seeing issues in your kidneys, or your immune system will start getting impacted, and you will start falling sick very often, or you will start having gut issues, constipation, gas, bloating, something or the other will start happening, or your skin will start showing signs. Like you may start getting acne or some kind of eczema or psoriasis or something like that. Now, there are multiple reasons, but a big thing is that liver is not being able to biotransform those toxins and being able to eliminate through the body. And when we talk about it from an Ayurvedic perspective, basically toxins are called ama, A-M-A. That's a standard word which is used for all kind of toxins. And from an Ayurvedic perspective, what it says is that if the body cannot break down or transform because the heat or the digestive fire or the pitta element is not high enough, it becomes toxic to the body. And that's why digestive fire or Agni or the pitta element is very, very strong for elimination. And when these toxins are not released because of a poor digestive fire, what happens is these toxins over time start accumulating in different parts of the body. And this is what causes 90% of the diseases in the body. Now, this is an Ayurvedic perspective. And even from a functional lens, we say that all illnesses begin in the gut, in your digestive system. And so it's not very far from what Ayurveda is talking about, but it's basically saying that if your digestive fire is not strong enough or it's not functioning well, it will basically create toxins. And it's very profound when I kind of understand that concept from an Ayurvedic perspective, and I'm sitting with a researcher or I'm listening to a talk on what happens with GI issues. And I don't know if any of you have heard of leaky gut or intestinal permeability. That is a part of your small intestine where whatever food you eat is basically the nutrients, it's broken down, and the nutrients from that food gets absorbed into your bloodstream. Now, if you've got inflammation in your digestive system for whatever reason, that intestinal lining becomes permeable. And what happens is all the toxins which you have ingested go through into your bloodstream, and through your blood, those toxins are actually accumulated and they pass and circulate throughout your body. Whatever is your weakest link based on the genetics, based on whatever you've been exposed to, what part of your body is weak, those toxins accumulate the first there. And that's how people develop arthritis. That's how people develop stomach issues, or that's how people develop kidney issues, because those are the weakest links. But eventually, it's through the blood, the toxins are being carried on. And so both the concepts are talking about the same thing, just using a different language. And in Ayurveda, I gave you a big list of sources of toxins. Ayurveda basically says that the sources of ama or toxins are undigested food, poor food choices, and poor food combinations. Now, this is based on that your digestive system is not functioning, where it is not breaking down the foods, or you're having poor food choices, which is like you're eating old, stale food, or you're eating food which is not seasonal. Now, the thing is, the problem is not happening with this one. We are in a stage where the level of chemicals and toxins in our food are so high, and the processed foods are so high, that this has become a bigger issue than just having undigested food or poor food choices. Especially in North America and the way our work culture is, we don't have time to make fresh meals morning, evening, and night. So we are relying on our refrigerators, which makes the food a little heavy or a little stale. So it does not give us enough nutrients. But that's a smaller devil to deal with as compared to what we are exposed to in our foods and processed food industries and artificial and fake foods. So that has become a much bigger issue. And that's a reason a lot of times, as a choice between eating something which has been processed in a big factory as compared to food which you made over the weekend, my choice would be, okay, at least that food is clean. You cooked it from whole foods at home and you knew exactly what has gone in, rather than picking up a meal which was packaged maybe 3 months ago, kept in the freezer, and you're taking that out as a processed food and consuming that. So, but both of them, as per Ayurveda, are sources of toxins. And then, of course, there are environmental toxins. And we have EMFs and radiation. And Ayurveda also plays a huge emphasis on toxic emotions, which is basically vibrations of anger and bitterness and jealousy and depression. And all those are also a part of it, of the toxic load. And again, from an Ayurvedic perspective, when you do a cleanse, you are basically focusing, for all of them, you're focusing on the digestive system to eliminate, burn, or detoxify. And that's why I said the focus of the cleanse is basically to enhance the digestive system of the body. Now, in Ayurveda, we have two options. We have a Panchkarma therapy, which is under the guidance of a practitioner, and that's a very intense detox process. And we're not going to talk in detail about it. But if you have a chronic condition, that could be an option which you may consider in the future. But gentle spring cleanse is what the focus of today's presentation was supposed to be on. And I'm not going to get into the detail, but I'll tell you how it works. So you release, rest, and rejuvenate the gut or the digestive system. And then you have certain lifestyle choices, like you may do a little bit of intermittent fasting if your body allows it, if your lifestyle allows it. And introduce certain kind of exercises and incorporating some time in the nature and some breath work. So the spring cleanse is done in 3 stages. Release and remove. Basically, what you release and remove from your diet is fats, because fats are not serving us anymore. So typically for a cleanse, you will eliminate fats, not completely, but to the minimal, because your body still needs fats. Your brain needs fat. There are certain areas of the body which require fat. So you're going to keep it very minimal, but you definitely eliminate any heavy foods which store toxins. You remove any inflammation causing foods, fried foods, processed foods, and any kind of artificial sugars, and foods that stress the liver. Would anybody would like to guess what is one of the most obvious foods which stress the liver? Any first guesses? Okay, I will tell you which is one of the first foods that stress the liver is alcohol, and the next one is caffeine. So if you can avoid or eliminate or remove them completely from your diet, especially when you're doing a spring cleanse, that's in fact a kind of a non-negotiable. And then you rest the digestive system, especially the liver, by eliminating all the toxic load and going to a mono diet. In Ayurveda, typical mono diet is khichdi. In traditional Chinese medicine, it's a congee, which is made with just one grain or one lentil or something very similar. With something very simple, and you incorporate some liver supporting herbs which are very gentle. And then the third is, once you've done the first and the second and followed it for a couple of days, then you rejuvenate, you introduce the nutrients which nature is providing you in order to support the liver, and which is typically a spring diet as well. And what does the spring diet incorporate? It's basically anti-kapha foods. Remember, kapha is the springtime. And in order to balance that heaviness of the water and the earth element, we go into anti-kapha diet, which is warm foods, light foods, and foods which are drying. And those typically come from bitter, pungent, and astringent foods. So a lot of leafy greens, dandelions, nettles, turmeric, bitter melon, which is Karela's, fenugreek, neem, and onions, ginger, garlic, radishes, spices, and astringent foods. Slowly, as you come into early summer, you will start getting pomegranates, beets, celery, cucumbers, green bananas. Now, this is just to give you a general idea of how you should be eating in the spring and cutting down on very heavy starchy foods, very heavy fried foods, heavy fatty foods, all those need to be avoided. You're not completely cutting down those foods, but you're reducing the amount that you're eating. What are the signs of a toxic load in the body? Inflammation, joint pains, chronic. I think I sent you an email with all the list, but anything before you get diagnosed with a chronic health condition, these are the things which come up. Skin issues, fatigue, low energy, brain fog, weight issues, hormonal imbalances, frequent flus, coughs, colds, multiple food sensitivities. Basically, your body is trying to tell you, and you need to listen to it. Now, it's up to you whether you want to kind of become proactively involved in understanding what is going on with the body or not. And it's a decision, it's a choice we all have. Now, do you have the intent and the will to choose wisely and become aware and responsible is an individual's choice. But definitely with awareness, with knowledge, with kind of motivation, what you choose in terms of diet, your habits, your lifestyle decides how you support the inherent intelligence within. All we're doing is talking about increasing or supporting that ability for the body to heal and bring it back in balance. Now that pretty much kind of sums up the presentation today. I'll open it up for questions, but I had said before that I am planning to launch a 7-day spring cleanse. I'll tell you the dates when I'll do it live. And it'll be like, I will basically, the full step-by-step of what to eat, how to eat will be introduced. And I'll be integrating the functional with the Ayurvedic for diet and lifestyle with the tastes and doshas. And I'll create a group. You know what? I'm just kind of telling you it's a step-by-step. If you're interested in doing it, where everything is laid out for you and done for you, reach out. It is, I'm going to do one session from 19th April to 25th April. I do have some people who are interested, who are not available. I may do it in May again. But definitely 19th April to 25th April, because I'm working on this detailed program, I'm collecting information. So it is going to be a beta launch, which allows me to test and offer it at a much lower price. And like there will be sessions before I launch it as well for you to ask questions and what to do to prepare the cleanse. It's going to be very simple. It's not anything complicated. And it can be modified to suit your specific needs as well, because all it is a little bit of intermittent fasting, specific foods, the way to incorporate it to balance blood sugars and things like that, eliminate fats, and how to increase the body's ability, especially the liver, to support it in certain ways with some herbs and all, so that it functions. And it's going to be only $47 in case you sign up, and the education is yours for life. So I will, in case you're interested to register or learn more, you can always email me. A lot of you know how to get in touch with me. You can reach out. And if you have any gut issues, you can also reach out to book a complimentary 30-minute session. I will stop sharing this. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them now.
How much it would be in US dollars?
It's going to be, it's a 30, I think it's 47 Canadian. You basically reduce it, think of it as a 30% discount on 47.
Oh, okay.
I can't tell you, it's going to be much cheaper because the Canadian dollar is, I think 30% less than the US at this point of time.
And it's like, does it like, is it like a standard, or do you do it customized for each one?
No,
the 7 days.
So it is a standard thing, but it'll have a spectrum, as in you follow it to the extent you're ready to follow it to. And I will be having everyday Zoom sessions to support you, as in introduce. Generally, I will be doing a session a day in advance so that you're prepared for the next day, what to do. And it's going to be done in 3 stages. The first 2 days are to prepare. The next 3 days are when we get into the process of elimination. And then last 2 days are kind of coming back into rejuvenation and what kind of foods to eat. And I will have 1 or 2 sessions before we get into the cleanse to kind of provide you a list and how to do it and everything. And if you have some things, if you're working, if you can't do intense fasting, or if you cannot do intermittent, then how to incorporate, all those questions will be answered in the support. And you'll have regular support on a WhatsApp group as well, to ask questions about resources, where to get what. It's not going, as I said, it's not going to be difficult. You don't need any equipment and all. You just need a few things, which you will be provided all those resources.
Okay. Okay. And should we like message you through Instagram so you can send us a link so we can register from
Yeah,
there?
I will be sending the link. I'm working on the link. It'll be through Eventbrite. You can pay through credit card or PayPal.
Okay.
You can sign up. So just reach out in
Okay.
case you're interested in joining. Manisha, if you're interested, what I would suggest is DM me or email, because everybody who's on the call, I have the email addresses. They will receive
Oh,
the link to join. So Vimla, in case you also, whoever wants to, it'll be easier in case you share your email addresses, reach out and share your email addresses. And that way, at least I'll make sure that you get the links to join.
cool.
All right. Any other question? Okay. So I don't see.
No questions.
All right, great. Thank you. So we'll call it a day if there are no other questions. We are a little over an hour, which I had promised, and I will